你想出其不意，我们让支付很可以。
好的，紧接着我们的第一场比赛就要正式开始喽。那我们的第一场比赛呢，将会是我们的地主选手陈太不要对上呢我们的 Bunnyhoppor。那在去年的2018炉石战绩全明星赛当中呢，才刚刚夺冠的地主选手陈太不要，不管呢是个人风格或者是实力，都是备受瞩目。但是呢，在我们的开赛第一战就对上了这个 IQ 199的博士 Bunnyhoppor， 所以邀请我们线上以及我们现场的观众朋友们，帮我们的地主选手好好的来加油打气一下哦。The first match of today is going to be hometown favorite BloodTrail versus Bunnyhoppor. Shake your hands with the other, and please take a seat.
"大家好，我的本名是吴宗昌，然后游戏名称是陈太不要。要讲英文吗？不用。节奏贼吧，就那个443可以找很多法术，就蛮 RNG 的，蛮好玩的，就还蛮开心的，就代表台湾，压力反正就还是要打，就上次比赛也蛮多观众来看的啊，这次应该也会台下应该也会蛮多人了，所以会。应该有点紧张啊，打牌是还好，不过下面观众人很多，会比较紧张。粉丝有很多啊，很多啦，就谢谢他们支持我，如果有的话，第一次好像是叫他叫我带了，那后来第二次是让主持人一直问我要不要带，带了都输了，所以就不想带了。
I think under pressure or in the spotlight, I was a little bit less nervous the past few times than my opponents were, so that gave me a slight edge. But I think now at the World Championship, it's going to look a little bit different because pretty much everybody here is somewhat seasoned veteran. They don't get as nervous under pressure. But the biggest sacrifice was really that every time I went to a tournament, I had to apply that you need to take personal holidays, and then I would take the holidays to go to a Hearthstone event. But if you ever competed at a Hearthstone event, you know that has nothing to do with holidays. You're actually practicing probably more hours than you're, I don't know, you do media and then you practice and you basically spend like 16 hours on Hearthstone every day, which is not your regular work day, right? So I hadn't taken holidays for pretty much 3.5 years, and that can become kind of stressful actually. Having an expansion so close to the tournament is going to make it really interesting for people to see who had been able to come up with good decks in this little amount of time. The matchups are going to be tough. The opponents are better than what I've faced before. I think my lineup is not... I think in the previous 2 championships I had a lineup which was favorite throughout the tournament. I don't feel that way now. As stupid as it sounds, but I'm just mostly going day by day or matchup by matchup and not... I don't want to look at all the deck lists and figure out if I'm well matched or badly matched. I'll figure that out when the possibility arrives that I face these people, and then I'll look at the decks more in depth and I'll look at my percentages. But nothing that helps me overthink stuff is good for me now. Yeah, so if I win, I think the first thing I'll do is I'll probably pay the mortgage on my mom's house. I mean, thanks for voting for me. Thanks for, I'll hope to deliver as many packs as possible. And thanks for tuning in and all your support.
We are ready to go here. Bunnyhoppor versus BloodTrail. I can't wait for this one, mainly because I picked Bunnyhoppor and I want him to get off to a great start.
Yeah. It was a little jarring to me that BloodTrail is clearly a very shy guy, and it comes across in those interviews, right? Like he can't understand that he has fans, people that follow him for just, playing Hearthstone. Actually, when we spoke to Roger, who's, part of the same scene, he was actually fairly sure that more people would be rooting for BloodTrail than him because, in his words, BloodTrail was cuter. That was basically the deciding factor. So BloodTrail's going to have to get used to this real quick. If he keeps putting in the results he's been putting in recently, he's going to be a real Hearthstone superstar and have to, kind of live up to being one of the favorites and not one of the underdogs as we've seen him in the past.
Yeah, let's take a look at the lineups here. We can see the double rogue ban. So we talked about there's going to be a lot of rogue bans. Well, yes, there is. We can kick off right now with them. And a big talking point here, though, I think, Bunnyhoppor, no warrior Sottle. So missing one of the two all-stars of the meta at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps he was fearful that more people would be trying to do something like we're going to see Roger do later on, where you just bring these big anti-control decks. But to me, the power of just Dr. Boom, the most powerful hero card left remaining in the game, I think most people would agree that's not a controversial statement. That power alone can really drag you kicking and screaming through even the matchups that are supposed to be bad for you. So leaving Warrior out of your lineup is a question mark to me, but we need to focus on the decks that they do have. And you can see that Bunnyhoppor is himself leaning a little bit towards trying to be one of those anti-control warrior, anti-warrior lineups. He does have that big Conjurer's Calling, Summoner's Mage, whatever you want to call it, where you just play big minions, you Conjurer's Call them, and you create these insane board states that even Dr. Boom Mad Genius will struggle to deal with.
And the problem is as well, you create them the first time and the second time, yes, they may be removed, but the fourth, fifth, sixth time you do it, it becomes very, very difficult. So let's just go into game number one. No more messing about. BloodTrail is going to be on the Hunter and Bunnyhoppor on the Warlock. Game one of the World Championships is starting right now. And what do you make of this matchup? Because funnily enough, it's not the most popular matchup you'd see on ladder.
It's not, no. And I think straight away, BloodTrail just drew the card there that really illustrates the point. Double Unleash the Hounds in this deck is going to be key because you would expect Zoo to climb ahead. They're just more consistent in the early game. It does feel nice. As much as I don't like this particular deck in terms of power level, the Zoo deck, it is nice to be able to call a deck Zoo again that is just one drop, 60% of the way down the list, because that historically is what Zoo was, at least in Hearthstone terms. It was use your life tap, you draw very cheap minions, you play 2 or 3 of them a turn, and you use powerful buffs to get more value out of cheap minions than your opponent can get out of their mid-range stuff, and you get incremental advantage until you win the game. So that's what Zoo will do early on. They will be quicker and more efficient than the Hunter early, so BloodTrail's going to have to, around that kind of turn 5, turn 6 kind of mark, find some way to play catch-up, and Unleash the Hounds is very much a key card in being able to do that.
Yeah, and even as a sort of backwards effect, all these one drops without some level of buffs, they are going to be a little bit susceptible to the hatchet that BloodTrail will have ready to go. So at least there's 2 to 3 minions that may just be killed off almost straight away. Very interesting to see what Bunnyhoppor does. This opening turn is very key, especially with the coin.
And I want to go back and cover BloodTrail's mulligan and opening turn here. It might look very, very simple. He played his 1-drop on 1, but he kept a Timberwolf, which isn't really a premium 1-drop, but he kept it anyway because he wanted to guarantee that turn 1 beast into Headhunter's Hatchet curve, because getting the full value out of that Headhunter's Hatchet is going to be massive against Zoo to be able to clear the board.
Yeah, so I can't see anything except this axe being equipped. Now there is, though, the Scavenging Hyena. So there could be a trade-off for the Divine Shield with this wolf to buff the Hyena a little bit, but suddenly you're 1 buff or 1 extra rush minion away from it just dying off anyway. So I do like this from BloodTrail. Just get the axe equipped. It's a 2/3 weapon. Chip off the shield off this Argent Squire, and then just start to build on the game from there, because I will have to say as well, Zoo just doesn't really have an answer to, for example, Unleash the Hounds into the Hyena combo, because the Hyena just gets too big and there's nothing really that Zoo can do about it.
Right. But this is what I'm talking about. You can see that BloodTrail, with that Headhunter's Hatchet, is being able to keep up a little bit, but you can see how quickly Bunnyhoppor will start to accelerate ahead of this, where that Unleash combo is going to come into play, because Bunnyhoppor can kind of just pick his poison here. A bunch of 1/3s as well, which is just perfect against the weapon that he's facing down.
Yeah, I actually really like going double 1-drop in terms of the Voidwalker and the Crystallizer, and then next turn, there can be the Sergeant to buff the attack, and then the Evil Genius to just kill off the Abusive Sergeant to gain the Lackeys and get an easy buff on a 1/1 that you don't really care about sticking on the board anyway.
Right. Yikes. BloodTrail's hand going nowhere fast here.
I think he has to kill command, you know.
You want to kill command a 1/3.
Well, the problem I have is I don't think you can unleash at this point because it does almost nothing. It probably does, what, a tiny bit more than kill command, I would say. And the real issue is you don't really want the board to get that wide because the two key points here are Evil Genius and then Grim Rally as well. And the second you let a Grim Rally go off, well, your dogs aren't big enough to kill anything on their own anyway, so you've already lost at that point, I feel.
No, I agree with the play, because really the only other viable option that turn was pass, right? Like, Scavenging Hyena did absolutely nothing. It just got farmed by a couple of 1/3s and is powerful for that unleashed swing turn later on. So yeah, you know, I agree with all the justifications that you made, but also he had 3 mana to spend that turn. You know, if you're going to keep up with a deck that's faster than you, the worst thing you can do is just start floating enormous amounts of mana every turn.
Yeah. It's bad when it's a deck that goes the same speed as you, never mind one that's faster. But we will see the combo there, just the Abusive Sergeant, great target for this Evil Genius. And now suddenly the cards I think we should talk about now, and we'll be talking about for the next 4 days.
Yeah, we're going to see our World Championship debut of the lackeys here, and I think certainly some people correctly identified how powerful these were going to be, but I think a lot of people also just let them pass them by. You know, 1-mana minions, they look fairly innocuous, but there's a selection of ridiculously powerful things they can do for a 1-mana card. Giving a minion +1 and rush, discovering a spell, dealing 2 damage, summoning a random 2-drop. They are incredibly powerful resource generators to the point where continued lackey generation can actually allow you to keep up on value as an aggro deck just by using 1-drops, which is absurd.
Yeah, and also right now, just as of the metagame today, there aren't that many decks that deal AoE damage, and normally it feels like almost every game is a Zoo Mirror to a certain extent in that it's so minion based
In philosophy, yes.
and the wide amount of attacks you can get even with 1/1s is actually a very big deal, and just having more minions to play with often leads you to such a great benefit that a lot of decks can't come back from.
Right, not to mention all the incredible synergy that it has within Zoo. For example, you talked about Grim Rally earlier. By spreading a bunch of 1-mana 1/1s all the way across your board, suddenly your Grim Rally gets very powerful, and then right on time again, Bunnyhoppor taps and picks up the Magic Carpet, which is where the real juice starts to happen with those lackeys.
It really is. The Magic Carpet gives any 1-drop the +1 attack and rush, which means once Zoo has the carpet on the board and some mana to play some other minions, then your opponent often does not get that board back, and it has to do something quite dramatic. And the 6 health of the Magic Carpet, it may as well be immortal in my mind, Sol, because you can never stick a minion to deal with it, and there aren't that many spells that deal 6.
There aren't, but BloodTrail has just found himself a very potentially convenient answer off the top with that Wing Blast.
I think you just do it, you know, it's just hard cast Wing Blast on 5 mana, and then swing with the weapon, because honestly, as such a minion-focused deck that BloodTrail is playing right now, I don't think he can afford to leave this alive. It only gets worse from here.
I mean, he might be wondering how bad the punish can be here, because it's not like he's developing minions of his own that, you know, the Magic Carpet will get value by rushing into. But at the same time, it's again a huge float of mana to not deal some form of damage to this Magic Carpet.
It is, but what I'm a little bit surprised at now is he could have explosive trapped. The odds are that Bunnyhoppor does attack, more than likely, and then next turn unleash Hyena Wing Blast with the dog trading in to something, which again, Bunnyhoppor's not going to not play minions this turn. So maybe that was actually a setup if he played the explosive trap.
Double time and
Now they're just trading +1 attacks.
You can see here just the power of the lackeys, though. Bunnyhoppor is gaining tempo while gaining resources in his hand, which
it's not fair.
Very few things are able to do that, and decks that are able to do that usually end up being pretty powerful. You look back to classic Patron Warrior, which was able to remove your board while spreading a bunch of 3/3s across their own board and draw 6 cards in the same turn. You know, when you can do all of those things in rapid succession, you end up being pretty overwhelming for a lot of people to play against.
And when you evolve a 2-drop into a 2/6 with Taunt, that's definitely a great step to go. The Witchy Lackey, we will describe all of these for you in case you're not super familiar, but the Witchy Lackey basically does an evolve once on a target, so it costs 1 more mana than it would do. So that was 2 Witches Lackeys, and the Kobold Lackey deals 2 as a battle cry. So honestly, even the bad lackeys, I'll do in air quotes that you can't see, are still very powerful in their own right.
Ha! Bad lackeys, he says.
Some people say it's all, and they're only bad in comparison to the really good ones.
Yeah. But yeah, this taunt has ended up being a little bit of a punish potentially for BloodTrail, just, you know, really not giving him much flexibility in where his attacks can go. I definitely see his thinking with the Unleash plus Wing Blast combination with the Scavenging Hyena as a follow-up. And I think the Explosive Trap, BloodTrail's thinking might be he gets to preserve that for potentially another wave of removal afterwards if he needs it, instead of, you know, essentially 2-for-1ing his Explosive Trap and his Unleash the Hounds on the same board. But he did allow for things like this to happen, right? He said to his opponent, all right, punish me. If you can, go ahead and punish me.
Well, again, one of my worries is, well, what if Grim Rally came down and then the carpet's 7? Right. And then, so, you know, so like, there's so many things you have to consider, and these boards can just snowball out of control. Mecharoo, well, great, the Explosive Trap goes on a Mecharoo, there's still a 1-1 left. And then, again, Grim Rally targets, Evil Genius targets, so on and so on.
It does look like a pretty powerful Grim Rally turn, but I imagine Bunnyhoppor is looking to test this secret first. Deal with the Explosive Trap, and then you can potentially just create a huge Grim Rally board to follow this up.
And with the Witchwood Imp buffing health, it's like the 2-6 never even touched that Explosive Trap at all. And second Grim Rally. This could be the beginning of the end, because +2/+2 on the board that's already getting +1 attack from this Magic Carpet in general is starting to get a little bit silly now, and this Unleash into Hyena has to do a lot this game to get something done.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, it's the attack buff is going to be great just for Bunnyhoppor to be able to increase pressure, but at the same time, it's the health buff that's really doing the work, because he's pulling all of his minions out of range of being able to be pushed by Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, and just look at the just continued value and rotation of cards, and suddenly this 1-drop deck has a 4-6, a 2-5, and a 4-8 on the board somehow. And BloodTrail has a big fat nothing at this point, and there's not a lot he can really do about this. I honestly think he had to go quicker with the Explosive Trap and just go into the Unleash Wing Blast, get the Hyena on the board, and hope it was a go.
I think the Explosive Trap really did a lot on the turn where he could have played it, though. You know, whether he played it or not, that 2-6 taunt still ended up coming down to punish him. I think it was just just leaving the carpet up at all was a big problem for him.
Now there is just Wing Blast trade into the 2-5, but again, yes, it does something. It still leaves the 2 actual threats on the board is the big problem here.
BloodTrail looks like he's deciding whether to give up his Unleash the Hounds alongside this as well, but he is also under significant pressure here because of the build of Bunnyhoppor's deck, which is a little bit different than what we usually see. Bunny is actually playing Leroy and double Soulfire in his deck, which is not necessarily the most common thing in the world, but it's something that I do very much like. I very much found myself playing against this Zoo deck and stabilizing at kind of, 3 to 6 health. And just feeling totally fine because they don't have the ability to do those last points of damage. You know, eventually against decks that are able to fight back against you, they can get there with the Soulfires, which is potentially now what we're going to see here, as long as one Soulfire does not discard the other, which it does.
He missed.
Okay.
Still not the end of the world, though, because these 2 1-drops still gain +1 attack and rush, and the Lackey can be aim face to put BloodTrail to 2 health.
Yeah.
He can trade off one, say, the Argent Squire or the Lackey into the Dog as well, to just say, well, you've not even got Beast left on the board, and still go.
It's fine. Bunny shaking his head a little bit head in hand, but honestly, I feel like getting that one out the way is not the worst thing. If that's the most unlucky you're going to get this tournament, we take those, because you are still in an incredibly dominant position this game. He's opened the door, yes, for a minor miracle to come out from BloodTrail's side to be able to win this game, but that is what's required.
And this is it now, very similar to just the power levels of Houndmaster Shaw, to be honest, this Magic Carpet, because the minions from hand also act as board removal the turn you play them. Bunnyhoppor, though, showing some restraint, not going for the Lackey this turn, no real need to. It still does the 2 off the top. As long as the carpet's alive, it will still put some pressure on. But that is going to be it. Bunnyhoppor takes the first game. Bunnyhoppor looks like he lost. I don't really know why. Maybe just, maybe knowing Bunnyhoppor, he decided after the fact that the decision to go for it was not required.
I think it was totally fine.
Yeah. I just mean he could have, for example, lackeyed into the 4-4 and then just charged the or rushed the lackey in to kill, save the Soulfires for afterwards.
Oh, you're right. Hang on, he had guaranteed then, right?
Well, the Soulfire can still discard the Soulfire though, right?
Well, no, because if the lackey deals 2 damage to the taunt and then has 2 attack and rushes into the 4-4 taunt, both of his minions hit face, and he only needs 1 Soulfire.
I knew I was right. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be game number 1 there, and BloodTrail, not much he could really do in that instance, to be honest. I think maybe just in terms of like the explosive trap discussion we had, I think just playing stuff out of his hand on the turns he could, that sounds very dumb, but I think that's just all he could do in that game. And I think that was the most he could do there. But Bunnyhoppor taking a quick win with that Zoo, and already Zoo impressing, I'll say.
Yeah, but that little moment that we were a little bit slow on the uptake was as well does change the complexion of Bunnyhopper's reaction there a little. Because I was saying, you know, if that's the unluckiest you're going to get, you take those. Luck had nothing to do with that in the end. You know, Bunnyhoppor rightly, you know, feeling a little bit bad with his opening play, and he's going to need to tighten it up because he is one of the very, very best.
Yeah, well, that kicked off at game number 1. Bunnyhoppor taking the lead versus BloodTrail. As I said, that is only game number 1. We've got plenty more coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And welcome to the HCT Summer Championship for 2018. I feel like we say this all the time, but it's one of the most stacked field of 16 players that we could ask for. Today, 8 players are getting eliminated, and 4 will join the 4 that we already have in the quarterfinals.
It's my favorite time of the year. Championship spot, the high stakes. Someone wins and someone loses, and that losing is a big spot to be in right now. You're 1 match away from making that top 8 spot. Dream of the World Championships have to come next season if you don't win here today.
Jan Hansoku, after going through an absolute roller coaster in a series he would have felt very, very good on early on, is going to put the finishing touches on with the Hellfires, and Race's very risky meta read in this tournament is not going to pay out. Perhaps with a different group, we could have seen a different story.
That's going to do it. Rugal is going to take the series 3-1 over Dog.
It is! That is just devastating here. He steals the Hadronox that prevents it from ever being in the pool for BloodTrail. All of BloodTrail, so he just concedes.
The quarterfinals.
All these quarterfinal matches are for a spot in the World Championship, and the loser goes home.
A8 is going to beat Xiaoti 3-0 and advance to the semifinals with the birth to the World Championship. You can see the emotions kind of rushing over him. Usually a player that's normally very stoic.
Way more than enough.
Wow. Killing all day with the Lich King is going to find himself taking a 3-0 set over Jinsu and moving on to the top 4 and a spot at the World Championship.
What a performance.
And it looks like Nalgadon, at least visually, has conceded there. Game number 5 is gone over to Viper. But again, it's Europe booking the second of 2 spots in the World Championship so far.
But maybe the burst will outmatch the heal, but there's 2 Shadow Walks in hand. What a game, what a series. Bunnyhoppor from Germany earns a ticket to the semifinals, and he'll be joining us for the World Championships for the Year of the Ring.
The semi-finals.
Mountain Giant comes down, and Killing Day's had a great run. He'll be finding himself in the World Championships later on down the road, but for now, A8, he's got everything in play to make this a victory. He's gonna 3-0 Killing All Day and find himself in the finals, 1 match away from being crowned the Summer Champion.
And it demands healing from his opponent. Viper has none, and that's it.
Viper gives it up, the ultimate mark of respect, the life tap concession.
Final match!
Control Priest started off really good in the Witchwood expansion, and then people proceeded to kind of make fun of it. A8's used Control Priest to get to the finals, so that's going to be a concession. Bunnyhoppor takes game 1 in convincing fashion. Whoa, wait. Doom?
No.
Okay.
They will not die. They will have 1 health, I believe.
Okay, you're right.
No, they
I was looking at Doomsayer
There it is.
potentially activating, and A8 picks up the Lord Godfrey. And what a creative way to pop your Carnivorous Cubes. But that's it. He's not even trying to figure it out at this point. A8 concedes. Bunnyhoppor 1 game away from claiming the Summer Championship. That's it!
We have crowned our Hearthstone Championship Tour Summer Champion, and it is Bunnyhoppor from Germany.
Definitely the best moment of my Hearthstone career. 100%, yes.
We are back here at the Hearthstone World Championships, and we've got BloodTrail versus Bunnyhoppor, game number 2 coming right up. Bunnyhoppor taking the first win quickly with the Zoo Warlock against BloodTrail's Hunter. But when you make it up with the rest of the lineup, Sol, Bunnyhopper's got Mage and his own Hunter left.
Yeah, the mid-range Hunter is definitely one of the most surprising decks that I've seen brought en masse to this tournament. You know, it's a very common deck in the tournament. I did not necessarily expect it to be so. The players who brought it do have massive faith in it, and I think BloodTrail's performance there in the opening game with his Hunter is not really indicative of how we're going to see that deck perform throughout the tournament. Zoo, not really the promised land of matchup for that deck. It's going to do fairly well against some of these other decks that we're seeing in the lineups. You know, potentially these slower mages and the warriors, it can really just kind of curve out, ramp up the aggression and put pressure on those kind of decks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting as well, just to see what the Mage deck comes out with. But never mind, I'll talk about Mage later on, mainly because this is going to be a Hunter mirror match. Are there any massive differences between these decks? Because I'm kind of with you on this one, so all the decks we saw leading up to this point were mainly Mech Hunter variants of aggro or late game, you know, maybe even some Spell Hunters in there with like Malygos as well. But just mid-range Beast Hunter, who would have thunk it? Master's Call is a good card.
It is, and there are some quite significant differences in between the two decks. Bunnyhoppor is playing double Tracking to BloodTrail's 1. He's also playing double Dire Frenzy to BloodTrail's 1. He also has a Witchwood Grizzly in there, which BloodTrail is not running. He's running a kind of a Wing Blast in that spot, both playing 1 Tundra Rhino. So they're kind of back and forth in terms of which spots they want to sacrifice against aggro and which they want to have brought in there against control. Because Bunnyhopper's Witchwood Grizzly is definitely a nod towards some of the aggro matchups, but at the same time, Bunnyhoppor is playing the double Dire Frenzy, which is a big tech for the heavy control matchups, whereas BloodTrail's only playing 1. So they both have kind of their strengths and weaknesses against both kind of archetypes, and it's really going to be about kind of early curve here, and if the other player can stabilize and then look to that Master's Call to try and bring them some gas in the mid to late game.
Yeah, and with such a short time to work out what list that you actually want to bring for these players, I think we'll be talking about this a lot for the next few days, is although players may have brought the same archetypes across some lineups, the actual card choices within those decks are wildly different. Right. We see so many different builds of these as we kick off game number 2 here. Just nice little links dropping down onto the board there for Bunnyhoppor, again, just to get the minion down, maybe to proc this Headhunter Hatchet.
BloodTrail is going to have to face facts and play from behind for a little bit here. He does have that Master's Call to fall back on very soon, which he might have to do sooner rather than later, because the rest of his hand, Kill Command, Zul'jin, really not going to be doing anything for him in this matchup.
Yeah, this Headhunter actually is going to be pretty huge. He can use it to clear off this 1/1, and most importantly, next turn, if Bunnyhoppor so chooses, he can at least drop 2 other 1/1s onto the board in form of the Timberwolf and the Lynx to give him the highest likelihood of just dropping Dire Frenzy on something, not so much just for the bigger minions in the deck, but for the bigger minion on the board, and it might just be what's needed to stay ahead here.
Yeah, using Dire Frenzy as a Blessing of Kings, essentially, in the position that he's in. It might turn out that kind of line just walks into BloodTrail's slow hand, because he'll be able to get like potentially a nice kill command off in that position if Dire Frenzy does come down on a 1/1. So we'll see what Bunnyhoppor's next couple of draws are, because with the hand he has, it's really hard for him to get away from that line. It's kind of all he has available to him. But he might be starting to develop a read based on 3 cards on the far left, which were mulliganed into, none of them were kept, and then none of them have been touched throughout the opening turns, that they are kind of the more situational cards, right? The kill commands, the wing blasts, some of those cards that we've talked about. So he might actually, Bunnyhoppor, very smart player, very adept hand reader, we might see him just divert away from that kind of Dire Frenzy plan, because we saw him, as much as, you know, he did have a little bit of a mess towards the end in that last matchup, we did see him very expertly playing around Unleash the Hounds, right? Through his Grim Rally turn and the Explosive Trap turn, he made sure that all of his 1 health minions were dying, and he just ended up with a board of 3 big chunky mid-range minions, because I think he had a hand read against Unleash the Hounds from BloodTrail. So we'll see if Bunnyhoppor can put himself in a similar position now against the kill command hand from BloodTrail.
Yeah, we see the power of Master's Call as well. Just suddenly BloodTrail's hand looks so much better next turn than it would have done without drawing those 3 beasts. And just a small nod as well, that Hench Clan Hogsteed is a card I feel like we're only going to see more and more of. As just a 2-mana 2/1 rush minion that leaves a 1/1 Murloc behind afterwards. Just very reminiscent of Argent Horse Rider, which was a very, very powerful card and popular card in its rotation.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that comparison.
The 1/1 acting like a Divine Shield to a certain extent.
Bunnyhoppor here, after much deliberation, chooses to hold back. The Timberwolf doesn't want to fully develop into this board state. Does mean if he needs to play removal on the following turn, he does have an Activator for kill command if his board gets swept away. That seems unlikely based on what mid-range Hunter can do coming back at you the other way. And now BloodTrail has been able to swing the board with these 2 Springpaws. Springpaw and Lynx, I should say, for the pedants out there.
I do feel like, funnily enough, Hunter at the moment has just become a wet noodle fight. It's just 1/1s into 1/1s into clearing 1/1s up with 2 weapon attacks. It's very strange, isn't it? Early game. Hunter used to snowball Sol back in my day.
Well, I mean, it still kind of does. That's the problem, right? Is if you don't just sit there and trade your Springpaws back and forth in the early game, if you let your opponent just have a couple of 1/1s, it does snowball. You explode. They play a Timberwolf and a Dire Frenzy, and suddenly they're pushing 8-10 damage in a turn. You're just on miles on the back foot.
I love the way it snowballs by playing another 1/1.
I mean, look at him. He's a good boy. That is a heck of a 1/1 down there. You have 6 other minions. That's immediately a 7/1. With 6 points of charge. This is why you immediately get into this nonsense when people say, oh, it drives me insane. Harvest Golem's a 4/4. No, it's just not, is it?
It's all hitting you with the hard, cold logic. It is, in fact, not a 4/4.
But both players kind of struggling with some hand woes here. To say early skirmishes of these mid-range Hunter games haven't been massively impressed so far. It does seem just a little bit clunky in terms of how it gets going in the early game. But BloodTrail here now does have the option to start doing something pretty explosive. This Scavenging Hyena come down, you know, if you remember this, basically the equivalent deck from the previous metagame, these big Scavenging Hyena turns were really one of the massive breakpoints of the deck.
Yeah, and I really like this because this pretty much just says, okay, Bunnyhoppor, you need to remove this Hyena. If you do, that's unfortunate, but you will spend most of your mana removing in almost every scenario. And then if you remove it, well, I'll just play more stuff, and then you have to keep removing. So suddenly BloodTrail is ahead on the board. We see that cute little Murloc there, just making this deadly shot not quite as straightforward as Bunnyhoppor would like it to be. But also just this Rat Trap, and then suddenly the Tundra Rhino and double kill command. BloodTrail will quickly lead into the spot that you get in Hunter Mirrors, where you go, oh, I've actually dealt so much like just chip damage to my opponent that I'll just keep going face now because I have 2 kill commands and my opponent probably doesn't.
Right. A lot of decisions this turn, honestly, for Bunnyhoppor. It looks, if he's leading with this attack, it looks likely that he's going with the deadly shot instead of the kill command. He could have chosen to go with the kill command there, which does reduce his damage output a little bit, but it gives him a more flexible removal against, say, like a Tempo Tundra Rhino or something like that that's dropped on the board if he doesn't have a beast to activate his kill command. And then the follow-up decision was whether or not to play a Shimmerfly there, which I like Bunnyhopper's decision just to go with the hero power, because right now he is gassed out. He has nothing to do next turn. So in an emergency, he now gives himself the worst case scenario of just Shimmerfly Dire Frenzy, just to develop a board and shuffle some decently powerful draws back into his deck for later turns. Whereas if he exposes the Shimmerfly to the board and it then gets cleared from BloodTrail, he can just draw air off the top next turn and have absolutely nothing to do next turn.
Right. It's definitely one of the worst minions, I would say, to put Dire Frenzy on, but it's better than 0 minions.
It's better than 6 mana pass.
Yeah, what do you think about this turn from BloodTrail, though? Because in his spot, after seeing Deadly Shot, I almost certainly would have just played Tundra Rhino and said, okay, my hand's not the best Tundra Rhino hand in the world, but it is a threat that my opponent, you know, generally shouldn't be able to deal with.
Sure.
They just went for the slightly slower play, though, just with getting the weapon equipped and getting the Hogsteed on the board. Just feels like slightly less of a threat because next turn, if he'd played Rhino, he could have gone Hogsteed, Weapon, Rat Trap very smoothly. Looks like he's going to go for it. Just needs something on the board that will either make BloodTrail lose his minions, but most importantly, just give Bunnyhoppor something to do. Because again, a lonely Timberwolf is not really going to get the job done.
Second hatchet, not really going to get the job done either for BloodTrail. Looking at these deck lists, you know, 2 animal companions that neither player is really drawing. It could make things a little bit smoother. Bunnyhoppor, also BloodTrail has had access to his Spring Paws. Bunnyhopper's found his Shimmerflies. But there's not a great deal of early game minions in there. BloodTrail does have those extra henchman Hogsteeds, which have been massive for him. They're probably a big reason why he's just slightly ahead on the board right now. Bunnyhoppor in their place has a lot of those tech cards I talked about earlier, but also a single copy of Vicious Scalehide that's in there as well. But you have to say, not the smoothest early game curve. You know, you'd expect a fair amount of games to look like this, right? Even if you get the Masters call, it's not an infinite supply of plays. You're going to be drawing a lot of the time just 5 to 6 mana's worth of stuff on average to be able to play out.
Yeah, and the biggest thing though, really, especially in this matchup, is the Headhunter Hatchet does so well against the early game of Hunter that they just cancel each other out so hard because that 3 charges on that weapon is so deals with so many waves of minions that you have to do something pretty big to stop it, basically. Oh, I love it. I love it when you just hit the point of like, okay, I think I can kill him before he kills me if we both rush face. And if my opponent trades, well, that just gives me more time to kill him. So I actually love this turn from Bunnyhoppor.
I like it too, but really just because he doesn't have other options based on what his hand is telling him to do.
Sometimes you have to just play to your hand.
Yep. I think that's exactly what Bunny's doing.
Big card we've not talked about yet, though, that would be extremely swingy is the Unleash the Beast, one of the new cards. It's basically 6 mana summons a 5/5 beast with Rush, and it's also a twin spell, which puts another copy in hand.
What is this?
And no, for those of you not played any Hunter, Dire Frenzy does not say, you know, shuffle the minions to the top of your deck. It says shuffle them in randomly, and randomly Bunnyhoppor's ripping them off the top.
I mean, as amusing as it is, it's not even really what Bunnyhoppor wants to be drawing right now. He wants to be drawing damage because you kind of look like this game has split off in divergent paths very, very clearly. Bunnyhoppor just pointed his kill command at his opponent's face. On the 2 turns either side of that action from Bunnyhoppor, BloodTrail has used his kill commands for board control. And because of that, BloodTrail is now slightly behind on life total, but he's threatening a huge amount of damage just in board presence. And that's the danger in a Hunter mirror of flicking the switch too early and going for straight damage, is that you can just lose the race to minions.
The problem now is, maybe it's a problem, maybe it isn't, but Bunnyhoppor can bail out of that plan right now. He can he can kill Command the Leok, get the secret active, and as long as he can survive 1 more turn, which bear in mind is just the Hog Seed and you have a snipe, then he can play Zul'jin and think that will get him in the turn.
He has 9 mana next turn. So he has to survive the next turn from his opponent and then the turn after that.
Yeah, the turn after that he can play Zul'jin.
Okay.
Is what I meant. It survives 1 turn with Zul'jinless.
Okay.
And then he can play Zul'jin to re-equip secrets, maybe kill command some minions. Deadly Shots in the pool as well.
It's not doing anything in terms of gas for him though, really, is it? It's not pushing him forward towards winning the game unless he just rips both of the Zul'jin kill commands at his opponent's face.
Is that not what you do all the time?
Okay, apparently not, no. Apparently I'm just not good at Zul'jin.
Look, just again, this hatchet alone is 6 damage. Oh, tracking could be big. Yeah, these Hunter decks are a whole lot of nothing, aren't they?
There is a lot of air in these decks.
There's not actually a lot of beef in the middle.
It feels like a deck of 2 halves, right? Where you have half of your deck is very powerful in one kind of matchup and half the deck is very powerful in the other. Because, for example, against Warrior, a lot of what you do doesn't matter until you get to the very late game and then you start Dire Frenzying your Tundra Rhino. And then it's very, very hard for Warrior to be able to keep up with that amount of burst damage coming at them. But, you know, those cards, like we've seen, Bunnyhoppor plays double Dire Frenzy. He's been trying to get good use out of that Dire Frenzy that was stuck in his hand pretty much this entire matchup. As it turns out, he immediately drew a bunch of 1-mana 4/4s as soon as he used it, which is way above average result from what he ended up doing. But on the surface, it should have been a fairly weak play for him because it's a fairly weak card in the matchup. And now, Bunny walking into Rat Trap. He's just going to play the control game, taking that out with the kill command.
Yeah, there was enough, I think especially with this snipe, there was enough flexibility to actually just help out to get him there.
Yeah.
But like I said, Rat Trap, once that's proc, that's just 6 damage out of nowhere, and the kill command procer as well. Obviously the Hogsteed's there now, but still, it's just a lot of damage and one Bunnyhoppor could not deal with.
I would like to put my opponent at 5 or below this turn. Not only because of what we can see Bunnyhoppor is likely to do next turn. Essentially, you know, Zul'jin will then start casting Rod of Roasting, essentially, the infinite Pyroblast card, just cast kill commands until someone dies. But also, BloodTrail himself has the opportunity to play Zul'jin next turn with kill commands in his spell pool as well. So I think pushing damage here on Bunnyhoppor can be huge for him.
So I think Animal Companion Explosive Trap Hero Power is the best.
I think find out what your Animal Companion is, and then play Thunder Rider.
That's pretty good too.
Yep.
Mainly because, as this is going to put him down just to 3, but my thought process was it's the most stuff that Zul'jin will recast.
Here we go!
So there's Deadly Shot, and then there's about 18 kill commands, but worryingly so, there are Dire Frenzies, which can target your opponent's minions.
Yep, there it goes.
Uh-oh!
Dire Frenzy hits the Leok. He would have needed to Dire Frenzy one of the 1 health minions and then hit it with a kill command. That's basically his only out at that point.
A buffed kill command.
Yes, that's very true as well, yeah.
Okay. Oh, 2 of those dogs aren't having any fun. No. Bunnyhoppor's face sums it up. Again on the dog. Hey!
Not quite what was planned.
Never forget, Bunnyhoppor takes the loss there as BloodTrail. Like, edges out on that one, I would say. That is one of the weirdest Hunter mirrors I've ever seen because no one really got ahead. It was very much just even all the way down to the very, very end, and Bunnyhoppor was eventually reliant on that Zul'jin, and look at the difference that Rat Trap made. I feel like every time you can get a Rat Trap down in a matchup, it's so powerful because no one could realistically play around it.
Yeah, you can't play around it forever. You know, if you're in control of a matchup, then it's a very different story because you can just choose to play 3 cards on the turn where it's fine for you and just deal with it. But that wasn't the case there. But for me, the real talking point there was the Hench Clan Hogsteeds for BloodTrail, which Bunnyhoppor did not have access to. And I think you saw just a very small incremental difference for BloodTrail there, where those little extra anti-aggro faster cards just carried him over the line.
Yeah, and look at that. You got to think about if Dire Frenzy goes on a Hench Clan Hogsteed, well, then you're feeling pretty happy about life because that minion gets very, very scary overall. And even just the extra 1/1 is fantastic. But that's going to be it for game number 2. It's all even 1-1. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone.
One night I was called on to scry. But what is this symbol I spy? It's my own crystal ball. Yes, I'll answer the call. And the others will come by and by. That's right. We be calling a team in. The masters of plotting and scheming. By this candle a-glowing, I surely be knowing whose gold will be once more a-gleaming.
I'm Bunnyhoppor. I'm from Germany and I currently live in Oslo, Norway. I like playing Hearthstone firstly because I've loved playing cards games since I was a child. My family and friends, they're overall supportive of me playing Hearthstone as an esport, but they're all very clear about what my #1 priority should be in my life, that being my PhD and future work in the chemical sector.
And that's going to do it. You guys have gone over it 1,000 times already. Bunnyhoppor is moving on to the Europe Winter Championship. What a ride for him.
In order to balance playing professionally and working a full-time job, I think you just generally have to accept that you're not going to be able to put in as much time in preparation and playing ladder and different things as other professional players. But you have to be confident in yourself that in the less time that you have, you can still make up for the training that others are getting in more time, trying to be a little bit more effective where others do not need to be effective. I actually don't have a good answer for how I balance my work and my professional gaming life, because it's almost impossible to do both correctly at the same time. A little sleep is part of the answer, but that's definitely not an ideal solution.
都打得比较顺吧，比赛都有赢，然后就莫名其妙就打到季后赛又赢了。
And BloodTrail is going to book his spot into the championships, and he has a second go and a go at redemption at this point, and this is a huge, huge deal for him.
应该是不会，因为我打的都蛮快的，然后对手又跟会受我的影响，打得变得很快。甚至有那个对面第一回就烧线，然后我第二回，然后换我的时候，我也烧一次给他看。就是面对他们要打了，要想比较久吧，就再想久一点。没有，我有可能只想，平常只想20秒，打他们想40秒吧。就跟我同组的那个欧洲人吧，他的牧师跟战士都带的跟别人不太一样。打我是不太好啊，不过他打快攻会比较不好打。这次带的牌感觉打什么都5-5开，就都差不多。我会打的比较好吧。
We are back with Bunnyhoppor versus BloodTrail. Game number 3. Everything's evened up 1-1 with a win on the Warlock for Bunnyhoppor and a win on the Hunter for BloodTrail. Both rogues banned out, but there's still the Warrior left. It's much a talking point of this tournament so far. But what have we got coming up next, Sol?
We have Warlock versus Hunter coming up next. And for me, initial talking point numero uno is this Hunter deck. That, you know, a couple of cards difference here and there has been brought by a large number of players, and I would hope for that large number of players that it's puts in some better performances from what we've seen so far, because it's looked like it's really scrapping to get a foothold. You know, even in its own mirror match, it's looked ill-equipped to deal with its own mirror match, if that's even possible.
Yeah, and point numero 2-0, I would say, about the Warlock deck. That's exactly right. For BloodTrail, the big thing here for me is these Sea Giants in a heavy, you know, like small, wide board-based minion matchup.
Yeah.
These Sea Giants can often just come out of nowhere, and then Hunter, there are ways to deal with it, but none of them feel great, like kill command trade minions or a deadly shot. So these Sea Giants can end the game very, very quickly if BloodTrail can get them down. And a lot of the time, I don't think Hunter can afford to play around them, to be honest.
And I think kind of Sea Giant by definition, right? If there's a Sea Giant on the board, there's probably a bunch of 1-1s and 2-2s and 1-3s on the board as well. So your deadly shot is not going to be doing a great amount of work. You're going to need to pairing that with an Unleash the Hounds and like Wing Blast as well to be able to pick off auxiliary minions. And that's just begging for a magic hand to be able to deal with that kind of Sea Giant pressure. And it's those very same Sea Giants that Bunnyhoppor himself has chosen to cut from his version of Zoo that we already saw him win with, in terms of that burst damage with Soulfires and Leroy that did end up getting him over the line just about, even though he tried to make a little bit of a mess of it. So yeah, it's we can put a spotlight on kind of both ways to play a finisher in the deck, right? Either a huge minion, call that your finisher, or just play straight up burn damage as Bunnyhoppor is doing.
Yeah, and we will see the, or maybe see the Witchwood Grizzly come into play as the one-up in Bunnyhoppor's Hunter deck. See if you can fish for that. And, wow, those are actually pretty decent options across the board, I'd say.
I would like all of them, please.
Yeah, I don't really know which one to pick. Animal Companion going for the solid play, also going turn 2 into turn 3 quite easily, and then having multiple 4 options to go whether based on a minion survives or not.
Right. BloodTrail's side, he's kind of rocking something very close to the nuts here with the Voidwalker and the Egg and Evil Genius to back that up alongside as well, which then generates a big board for him because he gets the tokens out of his Egg and he gets some lackeys, and then behind all that he can fire off a Grim Rally. Well, the downside of that is that he's probably going to be out of cards at that point. Well, how does 1 mana draw 3 cards sound to you? I'm saying his hand's pretty good if you're not following me at this point.
Pretty good.
His hand's solid.
Yeah.
Acceptable, passable.
And now...
Brave is just ignoring me.
I often try,
Yeah.
but sometimes you are pretty loud. I would say, though, that Bunnyhoppor now has, I would say, clear indication. You expect there is a way for BloodTrail to kill that egg, because you don't often coin an egg out if that's your plan, right? Coin egg, pass, pass, pass.
Right.
There's normally a way to prot them, whether it be the Evil Genius or the Grim Rally. So Bunnyhoppor now has to just think, what is the best against these potential outcomes? Do I play a 2-2 that's...
I think you have to play it.
Or do I pass? And often playing something is better than not.
Yeah, usually. But I think in here, like, beyond the economics answer of play your minion so it's in play, there is actually a threat to this Scavenging Hyena, where if Bunnyhopper's hand curves Hyena into Unleash the Hounds, BloodTrail going for his curve of Coin Egg into Evil Genius is then terrifying against that play. So there is a fear factor to playing this this Hyena from Bunnyhoppor, like a bluff factor, in terms it might get BloodTrail off the play he wanted to make of generating the 1/1 tokens.
Yeah, and it's a very real fear, because that play could just straight up lose you the game.
Yeah.
If they have Unleash the Hounds, you'll just lose. You'll just straight up lose. And BloodTrail seemingly has identified that. And he's just played a Voidwalker and passed, even though he had an exceptionally powerful turn locked in. Really, I mean, Bunnyhoppor didn't have tons of choices, but it had a really powerful effect just playing that Hyena there.
It's the only way I can describe it. It worked. It got BloodTrail off his best possible turn.
And now suddenly, Animal Comp into either removal or buffing your board, and then eventually into the twin spell if there's enough time with the Unleash the Beast. Bunnyhopper's hand's looking a lot beefier than it did last game.
Right.
To my side.
Okay.
Job done.
Leok, often much maligned. There's a lot of situations where it's, oh, Leok again. But when he's good, he's real good. And right there, that was an absolute game-winning potential.
Oh, well, Lackey's pretty good too. As the one on the far right, forgive me, I don't... Goblin?
Goblin.
Gives +1 attack and rush to a minion. And there we go. There goes Hyena. And we will talk about lackeys a lot in this tournament, but that was just pure value going on there for BloodTrail. But there's Unleash the Hounds.
And now lucky for BloodTrail that he did find a way to generate this board state. But again, being pushed off that early curve, that Unleash would not have been the draw on Bunnyhoppor's turn 3. So if he had just gone for his natural curve, we might have seen BloodTrail pulling very far ahead of this game by now.
I mean, lackey for BloodTrail.
Exactly, yeah.
Come on, that was good. Okay, so... how hard do you consider Dire Frenzy here, Sol? Because that's honestly what I'm looking at. Because
pretty hard.
Basically, if you Unleash, you lose so much of the potential power of Unleash, because these 1/1s are kind of trading up into 2/1s. That sounds really silly, but it's kind of true. But Dire Frenzy 1, it just creates a big minion that BloodTrail has to think about. And also, if BloodTrail goes wide and then makes a Grim Rally turn, well, the Unleash still kills them, so it's great.
That is the point I really wanted to make, where it's not like you get punished for this, because, you know, a Grim Rally turn will turn these 1/1s into 2/2s, which on the surface is a punish for your Unleash the Hounds, but because you're specifically making a massive Leok, that is really no big deal for you at all. And I think Bunnyhoppor has that kind of thing in mind because he respected the 2-health minion. He could have gone base there, but he chose to trade into the 2-health minion, the minion that would have ended up being a 3-health minion and therefore annoying for his Unleash to deal with.
And again, BloodTrail, because of that, has to triple trade into a Leok. But look at this. The boom. The
take 2, idiot.
Something totem.
Yeah.
You know, dealing 2 at the end of every turn is its ability. If you've not the most common card you'll ever see it played on a ladder. But now, most importantly for me, what a turning point here in that BloodTrail has a board. He is looking pretty decent so far, but look at his hand. Solarium into stuff until he can drop Arch Villain Rafam. It's a big deal.
Yes.
Why
Yes,
is it a big
Raven.
deal, Sol?
It's a big deal because Archetype Farm is terrible. So I gave my spiel early on that it was nice to have a Zoo deck that you can kind of, as a Zoo purist, feel proud to call Zoo. You know, you just life tap, you play 1-drops, your whole deck's cheap, you just overwhelm people with efficiency and life tap. Archetype Farm is the very, very opposite of that, where at that point, you're just generally playing one big clunky thing a turn, right? Most legendary minions are kind of understated a lot of the time because they're synergistic things that you build a deck around, and it then has a big power play for its mana cost. So you're not just playing big, huge, you know, undercosted stats every single turn. You're just playing something that's kind of big and kind of expensive every single turn. And that's the exact opposite of what Zoo wants to be doing. For people who like the card, that's how they'll justify it to you, because in a matchup where you suddenly need to switch game plan and do something different, Archetype Farm does exactly that. But you can see here the potential lack of pressure he's being able to generate because of that card being stuck in his hand.
Yeah, I do love that Bunnyhoppor. Sorry to just slightly change the point. I completely agree.
I was done.
But I do love that Bunnyhoppor just excels at Dire Frenzying something and drawing it within like 1 to 2 turns maximum.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. And again, Bunnyhoppor now has a Leok Unleashed turn if he so chooses.
And Bunnyhoppor, I was talking about Bunnyhoppor's hand reads earlier on. There's a couple of cards stuck in hand for BloodTrail right now, and there are not many cards that Zoo does not just extend onto the board, especially when you're not a Brawl deck, a Flame Strike deck, whatever it might be. You know, there's no real need to partition resources. I guess there is a slight fear that Bunnyhoppor could put BloodTrail on because there is specifically all these Leoks in his deck that BloodTrail might hold back resources to play around Leok Unleash. But you can start to generate a pretty robust read that your opponent might be sitting on Archetype Farm.
Yeah, I think that's very fair because there were 2 cards that have been held. If there was 1 card that's been held, it's like, oh, they just don't want to use this, or drop an egg onto the board they can't proc.
Or you start doing maths on like whether Sea Giant has been playable at any point in this game.
Yeah, but like with 2, the likelihood is so small.
Right.
Oh, Grim Rally, okay. Just play out the Solarium hand?
Yeah, this Leok is a huge problem though.
Yeah. But I don't think you want to waste these cards with, say, Flying Carpet. Flying Carpet also achieves very little this turn. The tap generally surprised me. I thought like just Juggler, Mecharoo, Grim Rally, and now a Grim Rally is just going to go away.
Yeah.
That's the card. If Grim Rally did not exist, this deck would not be good, in my belief.
Agreed. I think, you know, the one card that you do need to look at is Magic Carpet. I think that if that goes away, this deck's in serious trouble. But I agree with the sentiment. And also just kind of philosophically and logically, the life tap is weird, right? Because you spend 2 mana and 2 health to draw a card, which then causes you to discard a card.
That was playable.
So, yes. So it just seems fundamentally illogical.
Bunnyhoppor, the Leok Master. This Snake Trap as well, definitely nothing to sniff at in terms of just the way this matchup works. Although, is there consideration of a Sea Giant?
I mean, you definitely have to think about it,
yeah. Just give him a minute, because if your opponent sort of cheats out 2 Sea Giants because you played Snake Trap, you might just die.
Bunnyhoppor, I feel like your opponent's got a little too much health up there. 21's a big number, and I'd like to see it go down.
He's taking 2 a turn from this 1-3, though.
That's 3 turns worth of that 1-3 right there.
He's on less health. For now.
Boom. Good bunny.
Just the slam. No time for 1-drops. Didn't test the secret first, though, funnily enough.
And I guess this is the argument for doing what BloodTrail did, is that by life tapping, he then gets another card held in his hand. That's the difference between the card he life taps into and the card that he doesn't end up playing, is that card he didn't play could not be held in his hand and then turned into a legendary. I still don't like it, but that's probably the justification he will give you.
I'm not getting overly sold, but I'm just not even going to count and say this looks like lethal to me.
It looks like a big number,
yeah,
and it looks like 21 to 16 on the previous turn is going to work out being fairly key here.
Yeah.
Has some damage to spare.
There you go. Wasn't needed, never mind.
Yeah.
But Bunnyhoppor is going to take the win with the Hunter. Looking a little bit cleaner, I would say, overall. But you do have to wind back a little bit. And honestly, great. There was an extra random legendary in hand versus a Grim Rally board with a Juggler proc too.
All right, I want to divert away from that kind of small argument and talk about the large one, because what happened big picture in that matchup is that BloodTrail was ahead for a long time, and then he ran out of stuff to play because he had a 7-mana card in his hand that he couldn't play and pressure his opponent.
Anyone who has on a bingo subtle going sick about Reform, they can tick that one off early in this World Championships because it was only going to be a matter of time. But also, frankly, a valid point. Because I think the combination with that and the Flying Carpet, which I'll say is an expensive card at 3 mana in the deck, means that your hand is going to get clogged up a little bit, but it was just looking a little bit rough. I just struggled to throw away Grim Rally in that deck because when you start giving these 1-drops just that 1 extra health, they're so much more difficult for Hunter specifically to actually deal with.
Yeah, I think in that situation there wasn't a huge amount of value in it. It did push a little bit more damage, but because your opponent basically has Leok forever on the board, just based on how Bunnyhoppor just kept ripping Dire Frenzy minions, BloodTrail clearly had no intention or really any ability to be able to trade into Leoks, so turning his 1-health minions into 2-health minions didn't really get him anywhere because he knew that Unleash would still be a huge punisher.
Right, and we do have Hunter getting the job done there for Bunnyhoppor. Still looking quite scrappy to me. Very, very interested to see how Hunter progresses throughout the tournament. But Bunnyhoppor did take the lead at 2-1 over BloodTrail. Maybe there is only one more game left. Can Bunnyhoppor take it? Find out after this.
Each teammate I'm calling has stories. This tale's about riches and glories. Deep down in the earth, a king dreams of rebirth and refilling his gold inventories. Such a shame to have lost all that treasure. Join up, be a kobold of leisure. The cards now be calling. Someone new, no more stalling. And we next will be taking her measure.
When I was doing my PhD and Hearthstone, I was usually just working like 9 to 5. And then in the evenings, I would go and play ladder and practice for tournaments. But then I'd also try to spend some time with my girlfriend. On the weekends that she was working, I'd play like basically, 24 hours of Hearthstone in a whole weekend. I've made some pretty good friends from playing Hearthstone throughout very different countries, people that I personally think very much of, and I'm quite happy to have made these friends. In Cologne, we say mal 5 gerade sein lassen, which means just let 5 be an even number and, just get on with it. You move on and you go, because you know you're going to be happier if you don't argue about whatever that is. And even though I've been in the competitive Hearthstone scene for quite a long time, I think winning the last championship is really something that put me right in the middle of other really good players that are just competing at the highest level and feeling even more included in this community, because most people in there are very nice and you talk to pretty much everybody. I've been in the competitive Hearthstone scene for almost 3 years now. But being able to win the championship has kind of benefited even more people come actively forward to talk to me rather than me reaching out to others.
back at the Hearthstone World Championship, and we are going into game number 4 between BloodTrail and Bunnyhoppor. Bunnyhoppor currently leading 2-1 with only his mage left, and I believe he's going to be going up against BloodTrail's warrior. And we've talked a lot about matchups that aren't so common in the current meta. Now we're going to see one that is very, very common if you've been playing a lot of ladder.
Yeah, I think maybe the mage has dropped off on ladder just over the last couple of days a little bit, but it's still definitely a presence. And of course, warrior is ever present, omnipresent even. You really do just have to have gas in your deck to be able to deal with Control Warrior if you're going to be successful at the higher ranks of ladder right now. And this mage deck is one of the decks that's perhaps best equipped for being able to do that. I know we played together on stream a fair amount of this deck early on, and the deck that we were playing was incredibly greedy. And it was very similar to what other people were running at the time, but we commented there's so much room to be able to make this deck more anti-aggro and still have the gas that you need against Warrior. And I think that's what we've seen the players who brought Mage to this tournament try and do, but in a variety of different ways.
There really is, and the deck's definitely evolved from when the first few days, which wasn't that long ago, of the new expansion, new rotation. But looking at Bunnyhoppors, he does have some of the usual types of anti-aggro Zilliacs being in almost every deck at the moment, but also going for Arcane Keysmiths to generate secrets, which aren't really played in Mage at the moment. But suddenly for anti-aggro, you're looking at Ice Barriers, even to a certain extent Spellbenders.
Yep.
But even for the control matchups, such counter spells, just knocking away potential removal is absolutely huge. But the big deal is just the Conjurer's Calling and the timing and decision making of that card is going to make and break a lot of games.
Yeah, and that's why we say there's so much room in this deck to still beat Warrior while making the rest of your deck anti-aggro, because that Conjurer's Calling is the card that can potentially just beat Warrior on its own. It's a twin spell, the new mechanic in the new expansion, which means by playing 2 copies of it, essentially you have 4. What it does is destroy one of your minion and replace it with a minion of equal cost. Now, that can be very RNG dependent, and you can essentially low roll and think you can lose games to Warrior like that. When you do it on Mountain Giant, there is such a small pool of minions that you are getting an 8/8 or a 7/8 taunt every single time. So you then have the ability to do that 4 times against Warrior, and they have to repeatedly answer that board, not even mentioning yet the card Khadgar, which doubles the minions that you summon and is the perfect synergy card to go with that.
Yeah, just to reiterate, it does 2 minions. Spell.
What did I say?
You said 1.
Did I? That would be a terrible
card. But it is 2 minions, yeah. So as you said though, with Khadgar, it's very, very powerful. And the idea is the trick with the deck versus control decks is just putting enough to be pressure, right?
Yeah.
And then asking them to have removal. And often you can just generate so much more threats than they have removal for. And especially when you look at cards like where something Bunnyhoppor's included, Ysera. Well, outside of a straight up kill card, there aren't many removals that deal with 12 health in the game, like Hagatha's Scheme for 12 turns or whatever.
A Mega Devastator in Dr. Boom form.
There you go, okay, well, all right. But there isn't that many, so the idea is if that sticks, then you can Conjurer's Call in the Ysera, double up 9 drops, which are very powerful in this expansion.
Incredible pool of minions in this expansion. Yeah, not only can you just get more Yseras, but there's a ton of just huge rush minions in there as well. Like, you can do absurd things, and there's no real huge low rolls in there either, which is something that you're always looking for when going for a target for the minion. But something else that I do want to talk about just outside of the matchup is, of course, BloodTrail is now on the line, being 2-1 down in the series, and he actually has chosen to throw his warrior into this mage matchup. And now you can argue that perhaps that is the stronger matchup of the two because he has Zoo as the other deck, but I wonder perhaps with the anti-aggro cards that Bunnyhoppor has, whether it's the other way around.
Yeah, so we've just got a bit of a small technical problem, I think, so we're just going to sort something out very, very quickly. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with a continuation of this match.
Hi there. My name is Chad Nervik, and I'm an initial designer on the Hearthstone team. I'm here to talk to you about the devious mechanics coming in the next Hearthstone expansion, Rise of Shadows. Specifically, let's talk about the Rise of Evil. In Rise of Shadows, we have the League of Evil, an organization of wicked villains whose evil plot has brought them to the floating city of Dalaran. You're probably already familiar with their core team. They're villains you've tangled with before. Let's go through the League of Evil dossier. First off, in the Warlock class, we've got the leader, Archthief Rafam, the bad guy from the League of Explorers. He's joined by Madame Lazul, the priest from Whispers of the Old Gods, King Togwaggle, the rogue, Hagatha the Shaman, and lastly, Dr. Boom the Warrior. Together, they've formed the League of Evil and have set their eyes on the treasures of Dalaran. Now, every villainous organization needs lackeys to do their bidding, and the League of Evil has the best. Lackeys are a new mechanic in Rise of Shadows. There are cards in the Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior classes, the Evil classes, which add random lackeys to your hand. Check out this card, Improve Morale. Improve Morale is a very versatile card, able to be used on both enemy minions or occasionally friendly minions.
My blade.
There are 5 potential lackeys you'll receive. They're 1 mana, 1/1 minions with useful battle cries. We designed them to be valuable in most situations and occasionally awesome in the right situation. Lackeys don't stop here either. This is a year-long mechanic, so look forward to more lackeys and more cards that generate them. But lackeys alone aren't enough for world domination. They bring the manpower, but you also need a goal, a direction. Being evil isn't just sitting around. You've got to have big plans. Each villain in Rise of Shadows has an evil scheme. Schemes are spells with incredible potential, but you can't just rush into an evil scheme. You've got to take your time and think it through. That's why schemes start out weak, but their effects improve every turn that they remain in your hand. Take Rafam's scheme. It might not look like much at first, but wait it out and it becomes a lot more powerful. So plan your moves carefully. Rafam's scheme is effectively limited by how many available board spaces you have, but other schemes have no cap. During the development of Rise of Shadows, we experimented with many different mechanics before finally landing on what we know today as lackeys and schemes. Lackeys used to be called Evil Zugs. Before that, they were named Marks of Evil and were a currency that were generated by some cards and spent by other cards. We found that the requirement to draw both pieces in a proper ratio made them unreliable and not as fun. So we turned the currency into the payoff itself, similar to spare parts from Goblins vs. Gnomes. Schemes used to be spells with random additional effects or with additional discovered effects. The concept was to make an adapt-like mechanic for spells, but it proved challenging to find interesting bonus effects that worked on any spell, and also make interesting spells that worked with those bonus effects. As you've probably already guessed, the villains we'll meet in Rise of Shadows will be back in new different forms. But I have one more exciting set of cards to share with you today. Callback Cards. Each evil villain has brought a card with them that harkens back to the set they were originally from. Each of these reuses a previous mechanic. We've already revealed Madame Lazul's callback card, Forbidden Words, which is a throwback to the forbidden cards from Whispers of the Old Gods. Now, let's see what Dr. Boom is bringing to the Rise of Shadows. A new Omega card, Omega Devastator. Like the other Omega cards from the Boomsday Project, it has reasonable stats on its own, but it does something incredible in the late game. It's a great throwback for Dr. Boom. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the League of Evil. Talking about them does make me wonder what exactly their grand plans are.
Our evil plan comes together!
We are back. Sorry about that slight delay there. We're just working through a small technical issue just to make sure everything's good and ready to go before we continue the series. We don't want any hiccups happening during games, of course, but we've avoided that so far, so we're not doing too bad. But yeah, as we were saying before we had to just quickly step away there, it is going to be the Mage versus the Warrior, and I believe this will be the hardest matchup that BloodTrail's got left out of his 2 decks.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that when he's on the line, he chooses to go with that, right? He does have the Zoo to fall back on, which even with all these anti-aggro decks, you know, Zoo can potentially run over a deck like Mage very, very quickly, but he's choosing to just really not mess around, say, hey, I've got to get a win with this Warrior anyway, I just want to throw it out there and see if I can get it done immediately.
Yeah, and the power level of Warrior, you know, has been discussed to large extents if you've been following the scene since the expansion, but basically the level of control it has in terms of removal is, as Control Warriors always had, pretty high, but then Dr. Boom, the hero card, being available just leads into so much extra late game power, you know, with the discovery of the mechs, and as I would have to say, especially Omega Devastator as one of the new Sol loves it, clearly. As well, the new cards. Being able to deal 10 as a battle cry on 10 mana crystals and have a 4/5 that then rushes is so much tempo swing for a control deck to have. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, not to mention that with Discover a Mech Hero Power and with Omega Assembly, you're then getting, on average, more than 2 copies of it a game in a slow, long matchup when you go through. There's just so many opportunities to then be able to discover it, which then has weighted towards class minions and so on. So you get all of these extra opportunities to get this absurdly powerful card. Don't worry about it, guys. 4th best class in the game.
Yep, and one thing that we probably don't have to worry about as well in this matchup, as just a note maybe for the future, for the rest of the matches today, BloodTrail is running Elysiana, Archivist Elysiana, and also a Baleful Banker. But don't worry, it's probably not going to be very impactful in this matchup because the mage often either kills them or they don't. So let's see how we go as we go into game number 4. Again, apologies for the slight delay, but we are good to go. Bunnyhoppor on the mage and BloodTrail on the warrior. Let's go. Mountain Giant, pretty good start as far as I'm concerned.
It is. But from the mage side, you do have to be careful in this matchup. I think you are favored, but you do have to know what you're doing. What you need to avoid doing is just playing your threats out one by one. And then the warrior opponent can just essentially gobble that up with a good draw, right? Because when you're playing a matchup that is good for you, you should be aiming to beat your opponent's good draws because you're going to destroy the bad ones anyway in a matchup that's already favored. So if they pick up an early shield block, an early execute, and that carries them through to the point where they play an early Dr. Boom, which they've drawn to play on 7, you just playing one threat a turn is going to get removed from the board. So you need to kind of save up and look for an explosive turn where you're able to just go cheap Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling on the same turn. Because then that massively increases the chances that you then suddenly have a minion stick into play and suddenly you can snowball Conjurer's Calling from that position.
Yeah, and this is really, for me, the trade-off of people sort of angling this deck back towards anti-aggro again, in that I feel like on the first couple of days, when we were playing, especially with our version, we could have just freely played single threats into the warrior because the deck contained so many late game like big boys. It was almost endless. So that is something that can't really be done anymore because of the removal of, for example, decks were running double Power of Creation on top of all these giants as well.
Yep.
But Harper does have double giant now and Conjurer's Calling. So maybe because of double giant, you can play a little bit looser than normal because it's just locked in, loaded, ready to go.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, with a backup giant, you definitely do have a little bit of flexibility. Bunnyhoppor taking his time over what was almost always going to just be a ping turn. I don't think he's playing a 2-mana 2/2 there, especially without a Dragon Activator to be able to replace the card in hand. Because when you do have the Dragon, you can play Fire Tree Witch Doctor at no cost to your Mountain Giant, essentially, without impacting the turn that you're able to play it on. But without the Dragon Activator, you would be potentially slowing yourself down.
Yeah, it's kind of funny as well because you could play it to chip armor away, so Shield Slam is less of a threat.
Yeah.
But by playing it, you delay the Mountain Giant without the Activator, which means that there's more time for them to gain armor. So it's kind of a bit of a lose-lose scenario overall. Bunnyhoppor, not known to be the quickest player in the world, regardless of archetype he's actually piloting at the time, but still. No reason to not consider your options, as I do feel like there is a bit of a knife's edge going on with this matchup. And also, if he wins, this is just a win. First match of World Championships, a first win in the group is absolutely fantastic.
Let the pain speak to me.
Bunny does choose to go with the 3/3 here, just to be able to keep some of that pressure going. Messenger Raven is a great pickup if he's going to continue to be doing that. And it does perhaps indicate that Bunnyhoppor is planning to use these giants kind of in immediate combination with Conjurer's Calling to make sure that he gets that value come out of it. He's not in any rush to drop them down. The idea of just getting a little bit of chip damage through first and ramp up, keep that armor count low so Shield Slam is less effective is very much on his mind.
Yep. One of the benefits of the Raven is that it replaces itself in hand because you do discover a minion.
Yep.
So it means that it's not affecting the giant timer, I would say, in terms of mana cost.
Right.
The only slight upsetting part of this turn will be if the trade is made, then a coin Dynomatic actually cleans the board up very, very nicely for BloodTrail.
The trade is not made. Dynomatic won't clear the board, but you're probably not happy about it either because there's an Acolyte of Pain on the board.
Play to fatigue, Solo.
Yeah.
Toki Time Tinkerer. Come on, Bunny, you know you want to.
It's got to be. It's the only option. Bunnyhoppor, again, is very, very slow, deliberate, considered, fastidious in his choices, but it was always going to be a Toki. Just a nice, juicy Lich King. That's what we want.
Who says the rotations happen? It's one thing I've often wondered about deck building in this current meta. With Warriors so popular, do you ever start just running whatever 4-cost mechs there are? To just stop this happening?
Well, I mean...
You know what I mean? Just play a mech and be like, okay, well, where's your Dynamatic now, friend?
You say that as if it's some kind of revolutionary novel idea. That concept is actually a real thing. There are mechs being played in this deck in particular. What, Coppertail Scavenger, what's that thing called? The 4/4 stealth. I've seen some people playing that so that they can just drop it in terms of Dynamatic come down. Stealth minions are starting to become popular in this deck for obvious reasons. You can probably work it out. If there's a minion that your opponent can't interact with, it's then a guaranteed Conjurer's Calling target. Bunnyhoppor has gone down that line with the single copy of Halftime Scavenger. We're also seeing a 3-mana 3/3 stealth being played in this tournament, which a certain player is very, very pleased with as an option. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Won't go too in-depth right now, as BloodTrail now does have the awkward moment of the doll killing off the 3/4. And actually, I think from Bunnyhoppor, this just feels fine, mainly because there aren't that many doll targets, and when there are, you're in trouble anyway if you're not winning. So if there are huge mechs swinging at you, well, your opponent's Dr. Boom, and you're probably losing at that point anyway.
Trades. BloodTrail just kind of threw himself to his own death there, traded into the voodoo doll that was sentenced to kill him anyway.
I really think Keysmith, this could be a nice turn for Keysmith right now.
Why?
And mainly because there are potential spellbenders or counterspells that can be picked, and because there's such a small pool of secrets in the game right now, for this to pull, it's very likely that you get one of those, and then your opponent has to consider how and when to play spells if they are worried about the potential that Bunnyhoppor's looking at right now, which is going to be Mountain Giant Conjurers.
What if we play a 6-mana 5/5 that doesn't reduce our hand size, so then next turn with 7 mana, we can do the thing?
Cannot do the thing anyway?
Well, you go back to 4 on the Giant, yes. You do it next turn on 7 mana, but I think like with double Mountain Giant, double Conjurer's Call in your hand, I think keeping your hand size as high as possible is very relevant.
Yeah, I guess as well, you've seen one Dynamatic, so you know Toki's not just going to get obliterated by a Dynamatic, or it's not likely that they'll get obliterated by a Dynamatic. Okay.
Aviana, 10 mana 5/5, your minions cost 1. I believe it's been a while. The minions cost 1 part is the relevant part, and the part that I'm sure of.
The name of the card. Not so sure. The mana cost, definitely, because it's on screen now. But yes, that's correct. Now, real talk. What's BloodTrail going to do about this 5/5?
It's just irritating, right? It's the right size of minion to make Warrior have to think. It's not something that you just want to leave there hitting you forever, but it's not something that you really want to use a valuable removal tool in when your opponent's deck is trying to make 8/8s and 7/8s all game.
And I like Bunnyhoppor asking the question this turn. Obviously, this is a very powerful turn. Giant into Conjurer's Calling is what we've been talking about all game. But the thing is, you get 2 of those big drops and a 5/5s on the board. So a Brawl is... The worst outcome isn't bad, basically, a 5/5. The best outcome is great. And also, it's 3 minions, which is awkward for other removal that isn't Brawl, which is why I like it. It almost exactly requires Brawl, but Bunnyhoppor testing the water and didn't get either of the 2. Either. That's pretty... I'm not sure about the exact maths. I'm sure someone will tell me, but that's pretty unlikely.
Time runs out on me.
I don't think you ever want Mirror Entity in that position because that makes your opponent's brawls better in spots where you just potentially line up a brawl that's win-win, right? Where you just have huge minions on the board. They're then able to just go small minion, proc your Mirror Entity, brawl. So yeah, Splitting Image is what ends up getting taken by Bunnyhoppor. You can definitely see the intention there was to get the Giant down, protect it behind a potential counterspell or spellbender, and then go for the explosive turn next turn. BloodTrail, Weapons Project, test for the counterspell. Now attacks the smallest minion, testing for the splitting image. This is very nice sequencing from BloodTrail here.
In that case, with the board the way it was, I'm going to sound very silly, and I'm used to this, so it's fine, but was Vaporize worth considering? Because it doesn't get procced by anything at all, basically. So the BloodTrail will have to consider how he uses a Shield Slam or an Execute. Because the second he could swing there on a 2-2, well, the splitting image didn't get a valuable target because there's a 2-2 on the board.
I understand what you're saying, but there's no value in it because he's going to play his Weapons Project, right? Okay, Bunnyhoppor doesn't know what sequence of spells are going to happen, but let's going to assume. BloodTrail is going to play a spell he doesn't need to test Counterspell. When that doesn't go off, he is going to try and Shield Slam the Giant, no matter what.
Okay.
He's not just going to say, oh, it could be Spellbender, I'll just let it hit me for 8, right? That's never going to be a thought in his mind. So the bluff value just doesn't have any equity. It's never going to pay out.
Definitely feels bad splitting image with a 2-2 on board.
Yeah.
That's the feels bad moment.
I mean, it was just a low roll. That's what it was.
Yeah, very unfortunate. Ziliax can clean up this Acolyte with just the one hit, save BloodTrail some draws here for Bunnyhoppor. He's actually going to go for the Conjurer's Call on 5-drop now.
Wow, okay. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this because 5-drops with you make 5-drops with your opponent having a weapon, you could end up just generating a board that is susceptible to Warpath against your opponent, which is a card in their deck that is very, very weak against you. And you're using one of your highest resources in Conjurer's Call and potentially allowing them to answer it with a card that they really don't get value out of in the matchup a lot of the time. You can see the board state that he ended up with. It's only that Divine Shield on the 3-4 on the left that's stopping that from being a full clear.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, isn't it? And sometimes plays like that have to be made when you don't have the hand size to support a giant play. But at the moment, I don't know. I feel like there was either no rush, or you could have just waited one turn, gone the other way, or just used Toki and not committed the Ziliax.
Defend the gates.
But again, on average, a 5-mana 5/5 is actually pretty decent in terms of 5-drops in the game.
Hey, Toki is 6, right?
Oh, sorry, 6-drops. Oh, 6-drops are actually a little bit better. BloodTrail with Brawl and Execute as the main removals in hand. Spellbreaker doesn't normally get a lot done. Yes, there are Twilight Drakes, but Spellbreaker plus removal on a Twilight Drake is kind of just a fair trade, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In this matchup, at least.
Pretty good alongside that weapon, though. If he does land the Spellbreaker on the Twilight Drake, he does have the ability to clear it up. But it's about this time in the game where BloodTrail will start to feel the absence of a Dr. Boom if it does not come soon. Because I kind of set it up early on. Like, the bad draws for Warrior, this mage deck just runs it over.
Yes.
Right? There's just too many things that if your opponent does not have the ability to just magically turn every minion in their deck into removal, then they're going to struggle. They only have an X number of executes, shield slams, brawls, etc. And so much of their other removal in terms of Warpath is just so very irrelevant against the huge minions that Bunnyhoppor will play.
Yeah, interesting play there. Bunnyhoppor did go for Twilight Drake and the half-time Scavenger, which is the stealth minion we mentioned earlier. I was considering the same turn, but instead of the Drake, playing the Witch Doctor. Because if your opponent swings that weapon into a 2-2, you're like, okay, like this is fine. You gain a spell which keeps the Mountain Giant cheap-ish, and you don't overcommit anything too big into the board. But we do see the Spellbreaker clean up this quite nicely, as you mentioned, with the use of the weapon.
Yeah, I think the line that Bunnyhopper's taking here is trying to force a brawl on a board that doesn't have one of his biggest resources on it, right? Like force a brawl on a non-Mountain Giant board. But he's struggling to be able to do that right now, and I'm wondering whether this slow play might come back to bite him, because my philosophy is very much just save up, like it very much looked like Bunnyhoppor was doing, save up for your Mountain Giant Conjurer's Call turn, let them brawl it.
Yeah.
You end up with an 8-8 or a 7-8 at the end of the turn, and then you keep going, right? They need Brawl into Shield Slam. They need Brawl into
and
Rush
also,
Minion into Execute.
Even if they perfect you, they have 2 Brawls and you have 4 Conjurer's Call.
Right.
So I'm wondering now. I'm staring at the Aviana. So what's the punish?
It does seem like something spicy is going to happen in the near future.
I was just thinking, play it now. You're not under any real threat. The 2 minions trade off very cleanly. If your opponent brawls it, fantastic.
Right.
If they don't, even more fantastic. And I don't know what the punish is minion-wise for BloodTrail. Yeah, for BloodTrail's minions, as it's not going to really be much that can deal with it. I also love the way we talked up so much these giant Conjurer's Call-ins, and both now, or the one copy but twin spelled, has been played on very, very, very mediocre minions.
Yep. I think this second one is better than the first one, because I think with the first one, you've established that your opponent does not currently have Warpath, which then makes plays like this better as a follow-up. But it is very different from how I've been playing the matchup early on, and there you go.
Dinomatic and Omega Devastator. Those are cards of nightmares, and BloodTrail's playing now with 2 extra in the deck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nope, never mind. Save the best till last.
It's just so very depressing to play against this. When Warrior gets to 10 mana and this card is turned on, it starts to feel very much impossible to stick a minion.
When it can 2-for-1 nearly anything in the game as a 4-drop, PGH got nerfed, so think about that one for a second. And now, the big problem with that previous Conjurer's Call-in is this Mountain Giant is not a superhero it could have been.
Right.
This is just a Mountain Giant, which, yes, decent minion, but nowhere near as oppressive as it could have been. And now look at this hand. This is the anti-aggro side of the hand. The Sun Fury Protector, the Rabble Bouncer, 2 Scorchers in hand. And all of this, BloodTrail just laughs at because it doesn't do anything.
Time runs out on me.
I think not getting a Giant down before turn 10 against Warrior is something you should not aim for in life.
Well, he did. One Giant was played.
Oh, okay, sorry. Not getting a Giant copy turn down.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Well, pack it up, boys and girls. We're going to a game 5.
I'll give a small shout out as well to Vicious Scrap Hound, extremely underrated little mechano dog who can get some wonders done with Zilliax against some aggro matchups that we witnessed multiple times.
Once you're in Dr. Boom form, it can get some wonders done with any magnetic
That's
mech.
true. That's true.
Unity, precision,
This is just too swingy. BloodTrail now has the board, and he has Dr. Boom to back this up, and this mage deck does not play from behind.
No.
That's the one thing it just absolutely cannot do. It's why you see these cards like Rabble Bouncer and so on being brought in, because it at least kind of gives you something to leverage losing control of a board state. But this is just not looking promising from Bunnyhoppor's side.
It can do it maybe once with a voodoo doll based on board size.
Sure.
In terms of just saying a cheap removal and then be able to play something to follow up.
Right.
Maybe it does it once. That's it. But the problem is, BloodTrail's won the board and has a scary board in itself without Dr. Boom. With Dr. Boom, it just gets silly at that point. Now I don't even know what to do with Bunnyhoppor. Or as Bunnyhoppor.
I just don't know what to do with him.
Nothing. Just let him play his game. Now, I mean, when you're not even scared of the turn the mage player's done, you can do pretty much whatever you want at this point. Even the nice 3 damage there as well for the full clip.
Yikes. Perfect hand space as well to rip the Omega Assembly. Not as good as the first one, but still, all of these minions are now removal.
Yeah. I mean, Crowd Roaster, cool. That's all I've got for my analysis.
Is that all you're giving me? Is that what I've got to work with? Crowd roaster, cool.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
It does something, but that something is not enough. I mean, is it any even better than just Scorch or Ping? Like, not really, is it?
Not particularly, no.
That's what happened. See? Cool.
It's just not even that cool, though, is it? Not only was it not
It's
insightful,
the way I said cool. Listen to my
it just
inflection.
wasn't even accurate.
Welcome to my cast. Okay,
Both
so
figuratively and literally. It's not cool. No one wants to see it here. And it's literally breathing fire. Couldn't be further from the truth.
I mean, cool is in rad.
But it's just not that either, is it?
It's a pretty cool card.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll never know what. Arena's full. Beat.
Not much for Bunnyhoppor to do. The only small solace here is this Rabble Bouncer can kill off one of these minions if it has to trade. They probably don't have to trade because BloodTrail probably just plays a mech that rushes into it and kills it
especially
anyway.
your opponent just played a Mega Assembly last turn, so you know
And
they
there's
have options.
3 damage just from the hero power.
Yep.
So did my opponent discover a mech that can do 4 damage? Almost certainly.
Right.
Also saying that, I forgot about this Safeguard, which is a card BloodTrail's playing. It's not a common pick in the deck. It's playing a one-off Safeguard. Sort looks bemused.
Yeah, I noticed, I was looking at his deck list, obviously throughout the week and just before we came out here, and the card that kept leaping out to me in his Warrior was the Baron Geddon. That was the card that I kept staring at, and I think the fact that's immediately below the Safeguard in the list was just blinding me to that Safeguard even being there.
There you go. Coppertail Imposter, that's the name of the card. Bunnyhoppor's going to have to just think of something to do here. Conjurer's Calling, okay. He can crowd roast the 6-2, remove that, the high damage threat, and then just Conjurer's Calling for double 7 drops.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the only play I see that could have any real impact on the rest of this game. Bunnyhoppor, considering he wrote last turn, he's just locking in right now.
Yeah, and I think you have to go for it. Beryllium Nullifier, okay.
I'll counter point. Azalina.
Right.
Not okay.
Right. And I was about to say, a 3-8 untargetable is pretty nice in this situation because you want a minion to stick to the board. But then very quickly realized how dumb that was, because the reason you want a minion to stick to the board is so you can Conjurer's Calling it again, which makes untargetable not exactly what you're looking for.
I do like the, and this is where BloodTrail's ahead, the swag Warpath for one thing to make his 2-4 attack and do the 1 extra damage required. Okay, I'll say it once, I'll say it again last turn. There may be a chance if Ysera does something, but there is an execute.
What does it do, though?
Well, just from Bunnyhoppor's point, maybe it sticks.
Sure. Okay.
Because there was a lot of one Warpath trade that happened that turn.
Okay.
That was not a clean turn.
Fair enough.
Dream.
I do like the timing on the last turn from Bunnyhoppor, choosing essentially to go all in. Everything lined up for him. It was a decent usage of the roaster to begin with. He got the cooling down. It was also on a turn where BloodTrail just had the defensive hero power. He just had the tank up. So it's minimum chance that he was able to then deal with the minions. But yeah, the chances of sticking a minion to the board when your opponent's in Dr. Boom form, it's a pipe dream.
Yeah. And they've played double Omega Assembly for 10, of course. So to generate 6 extra mechs specifically.
And now the only slight downside from BloodTrail's perspective is that he's kind of running out of gas at this point. But he just picked up Weapons Project Harrison as well. And he has no worry about hitting fatigue, because as soon as he gets there, he has the Elysiana to refill again. So he just has a couple more threats to beat from Bunnyhoppor's side, and as long as he can do that with the remaining cards in his deck, he should be fine.
And honestly now, there are Astromancers in the deck for Bunnyhoppor that can get any form of impactful turn, and they're already dead on board. It would have to be Astromancer, Conjurer's Coin on the Astromancer into a slew of extremely powerful minions. I don't even know what they could be.
Time runs out on me.
Bunnyhoppor looked about as sad to see that rope as any time in history. He was using every second available to him to try and find himself a win condition in this matchup, but that rope appeared, and he just had this look on his face like, yep, I got nothing.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just going to play my cards.
Yeah, I guess I have to do something.
Yeah.
It'll look really bad if I just rope out. Yeah, there's the little combo.
That belongs in a
Weapons project.
That sounded very patronizing. The little combo.
It is.
That's an adorable little combo you got there.
It is a little combo that's a little bit adorable. Adorable? There we go.
It's actually what we call admirable backstage. That's adorable.
Well, adorable. Aha. That's true. Now, pretty much has to be Astromancer. It is, but it's also a 4-drop Astromancer, so nothing to particularly write home about. And now, Dream's there to just knock back the safeguard, but...
Did he get 2 7-mana Deathwings with Mega Wind Fury and Charge?
And Taunt. No.
No, he didn't? Okay. Just checking. Ziliax. Could be Security Rover, honestly, in that spot. Nah, okay.
I think Ziliax, some attacks.
Being the Tunnel Blaster, he is now going to lose a little bit of his board state. Harrison does bite the dust.
Cheeky, though.
There comes the Baron Geddon.
Considering I believe there's another Book of Spectres in the deck, not really the best
he played
draw in
one
the
already.
world. Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. Okay. Okay, so a really good Book of Spectres. Draw 3 cards. Again, though, pretty much unable to get back onto the board now, because these, even a second Astromancer would do nothing, or nothing that's good enough. We can see there's still Warpath, there's still Execute, there's still Brawl. Super Collider is actually one of the cards we've not talked about, but a big deal in this matchup, because the minions are so often roughly equal to power level that they do kill each other if you tap them once.
Right.
Three of the lowest curve minions in the deck.
There's just not. I think his remaining cards are his second Astromancer, which is kind of the one piece of gas that he has, a second Arcane Keysmith, and then X.
Rebel Bouncer?
Is he not? I feel like I saw 2 in his hand at some point, but I might be wrong.
This story deserves a new ending.
I like this as well. BloodTrail choosing to ignore his last card to make sure he can play Elysiana on a turn that he's not under pressure, because a lot of the time that's actually the only way you beat Elysiana, is that you put so much pressure on them that they're not able to do it. And I think BloodTrail did just pick the Chef Nomi there.
Chef Nomi, yeah.
Okay.
I should stop saying Nomi, because everyone else says Nomi. But then I just think of a little gnome instead of a big panda. Fiery War Axe seems fine, although... Oh, actually, no, never mind. It's Dr. Boom, he can charge Vex, never mind.
Yeah.
And then Elysiana goes back.
I don't know why you want a 3-2 weapon when you have a charging robot dinosaur.
Rushing.
All right,
the 3-2 weapon does have charge.
Fair point. Let me fix my face. Because that would be overpowered, obviously. They couldn't have charge. Rushing them is entirely fair.
Yes. Oh, Witch Doctor. Ooh.
I wonder.
May as well play it.
The skies.
I'd love it if he just dreams back the Elysiana. It's like, have another one, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Well, I called it as soon as that Dr. Boom appeared in BloodTrail's hand, but it does finally appear, we can say with absolute certainty, that we are going to be heading to a Game 5 here, because Bunnyhoppor just does not have the gas remaining.
Yeah, BloodTrail can almost close his eyes and play the cards that aren't Brawl, and he will be in a fine position in this game.
Right.
Not even close to being injured either, so it's not like there's a final chance, even a few turns ago, of Bunnyhoppor really presenting a front of minions and maybe getting a sneaky lethal.
Shut your eyes, Khadgar, Astromancer, 2 4-drops are not going to save you from this position.
Yep. There we go. BloodTrail evens it up 2-2, and we are going into a game number 5 on the first match of the World Championship here. See the crowd there enjoying that one and really getting behind BloodTrail as he is playing on home turf.
Yeah, he's the local boy. You know, you mentioned he's been very successful kind of on home turf, and we talked to him when we got a chance to interview the players, and he said he does actually feel more comfortable, not just because he doesn't have to travel, but also because, you know, just the environment is more comfortable. He knows people around him speak his language. He feels a bit more confident and comfortable in an environment that he recognizes, and it really does seem to be paying out for him as he has had a lot of success on home soil.
Yeah, he has, yeah. And I think when we were interviewing him the other day, you know, I said, oh, actually, how far away do you live? It's a couple of hours.
Yeah.
It's like, that sounds far generally, but that is not far compared to how far many of the players and people here have traveled to be here.
Right.
You know, with the tens of hours being talked about by most people. So yeah, very, very comfortable. And Bunnyhoppor just generally, I will not ask him after the match, maybe a few days later down the line.
Yeah.
But I will definitely want to talk to Bunnyhoppor about that game, because it is just not the way I would have played that game specifically in terms of timings of, most importantly, of course, the Conjurer's Calling.
Yeah, I think there's windows, right? I think potentially even with Bunnyhoppor's hand, he actually could have turboed Giants if he wanted to, because he could have played the first one and it can potentially win the game just because there's no answer. And then if that didn't land, he then has the second one to fall back on. But I think normally, say you draw one Giant, which is, you know, fairly average, there's a window where you fill up your hand to get a 3 or 4 mana Giant, and then you have kind of this turn 6 to 8 window where you want to start landing and pressuring. Because if you wait as long as Bunny did, where he kept trying to play these little mid-range threats and then started playing big boys later on, he waited until kind of 10 mana to start dropping these huge Twilight Drakes and Mountain Giants to the board. And at that point, your opponent can be in Dr. Boom with 6 Omega Devastators in their hand, and you're just never going to get anything done.
Right. We're going to the what will just be the last game of the series right now. First match of the day, though, is going to be BloodTrail's Zoo versus Bunnyhoppor's Mage. And an interesting question as well, that I'm just staring at the lineups, in that Bunnyhoppor's Mage is very, very defensive. Double Mind Control Tech, double Voodoo Doll, double Keysmith.
Yep.
There's the Halftime Scavenger. There's one Sunfury Protector. You know, there's a lot of low curve in there. If you're leaving Warrior up, and banning an aggro deck, could it have been afforded to be a little bit more high curve?
It's definitely something that I questioned as well, not just with this Mage deck, but also with the bring of Zoo, right? Like you're bringing Zoo into a leave Warrior up, ban Rogue strategy, which is kind of interesting in its own right. Also, a point that I was going to try and bring up before we had our little technical issue earlier on is that this build of the deck from Bunnyhoppor is so anti-aggro that I was kind of raising the issue of like whether the Warrior or the Zoo matchup was actually the better matchup for him, because he has so many cards like Rabble Rousers, Dragonmaw Scorchers,
yeah, double Scorcher as well, yeah. It's never ending.
He's pretty good at drawing early books, I'll give him that.
Yeah. Also a matchup where I would say some of these aggro matchups, although Conjurer's Calling is always very powerful, but if you're running a deck that's this anti-aggro, it isn't as much of the end of the world if you burn one. It's never good, but there are so many anti-aggro tools that you can just see looking at the hand.
Yeah,
if there's a burn, it's not the worst thing that could happen.
If you burn a Conjurer's Call, just pretend it was on the bottom of your deck and you were never going to draw it anyway.
And most importantly, it has one in hand
It
already.
just doesn't matter, yeah.
Okay, so a couple of options now, though. Could have been Juggler Grim Rally, but going for the Evil Genius instead. The dreaded Discover Lackey.
This card is the absolute stone cold coconuts. It's absurd.
Do you consider Twisting Nether? It's a tough one.
I would have had to think about it and then probably convince myself that if I picked it, I should probably be immediately committed to the nearest mental health facility.
BloodTrail does play Archvillain Reform, so maybe he's just playing for the long game.
That's true, yeah.
Reform into Twisting Nether into Let's Go. And now, though, look how scary this is. Bunnyhoppor has to buy some time because I can spot a double Grim Rally. And there's even a Lackey in hand to proc with it, so you don't, like, you know, burn a live minion, so to speak.
I mean, a 1-mana 3/7 Taunt certainly buys some time right now.
It definitely would, but also a 2/7 Taunt would. as well. If you want to give the correct stats.
Why did I say 3-7?
I'm like, a 1 mana 100 taunt would be good.
I don't know why I said 3-7.
Even though Witch Doctor's actually so flexible in terms of potentially an anti-aggro tool as well. Because I've won some matchups here where you get like Frost Nova, Blizzard, you know, like you can go for these stall tools that make huge impacts because the deck shouldn't be allowed to play those cards based on how it's built. Actually won me a Nami Priest.
Okay. I mean, not a huge discrepancy in quality of minions, but Bunnyhoppor arguably, you know, found himself the best one, the 1-1 versus the 2-2. You can have the debate over. 1-1 with Divine Shield potentially better against Zoo because they can't find any way just to value trade it in one hit.
Uh-oh. Ooh. Riddle me this, Sol.
Yeah.
Which one do you play? Or two, depending obviously, but...
The loss of the Magic Carpet is massive here because that's the card that can really destroy Mage in this matchup, because what I believe you will see at some point is Bunnyhoppor find himself a foothold on the board and then able to generate himself a Conjurer's Call board on perhaps one of these 7-drop Rabble Bouncers. Even if you're able to do that, if your Zoo opponent has a Magic Carpet, they can usually just trade your board down from hand a lot of the time anyway. So the loss of the Magic Carpet here is definitely going to be huge for BloodTrail.
Yeah, and this is where, honestly, the knowledge and play style of Zoo, maybe in this matchup specifically, baffles me sometimes from what BloodTrail's doing. Because it's hard to see a Magic Carpet and an Evil Genius and neither of them get picked and discarded, because it went Flame into the Lackey, into the Grim Rally, and you just throw away 2 of your most powerful cards in the deck.
Yeah, so
but it was to trade through the 2/7, and it's just, is that worth it?
Right.
So I honestly don't really know.
I don't think you can play the Magic Carpet there. I think that's ruled out because it just makes your turn too weak, right? You're just 3 mana, play a 1/6, and then your opponent just still has their 2/7 taunt on the board, and that gets you into a world of trouble because they already have 6 power on the board that can just value trade your Magic Carpet. Conjurer's Calling start coming down, you're in a mess. So I think you had to rule out the Magic Carpet straight away.
1 turn away from this Scorcher, which I think Bunnyhoppor will at least glance at, looking to try and set up somehow, if possible. Well, there isn't that much to do here.
Double Fire Tree looks superior to Twilight Drake from where I'm sat.
Mirror Image.
Mirror Image is huge.
These Witch Doctor's getting some of the more defensive tools here. And a Blizzard, wow. Don't know about, yeah, I was going to say, it was just a small pause there, but I'm looking at Blizzard every single day of the week. And suddenly, these Witch Doctors have made maybe the biggest impact on this game that we'll see out of any card.
Yeah. Worth noting, of course, again, that BloodTrail is the Sea Giant list of Zoo, so Mirror Image can sometimes get Bunnyhoppor into some trouble where Sea Giants are involved.
That's what the Blizzard's for.
Sure. Probably more what the Crowd Roaster's for, but...
BloodTrail now, though, with that second Grim Rally really turning up the heat, and here we go, Sol. Are we going to 2 for 2 with your Rage on Archvillain Rafarm being in hand? Let's find out.
We're getting close already.
On this
Just
episode
seeing that
Sol
card
Rage
makes me angry.
It's golden, though, so fair play.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
What to do?
But this is where, you know, I do kind of give the nod towards Bunnyhopper's style of Zoo deck that he built, where he has Leroy Jenkins and Soulfires. Because you can already start to see a world now where Bunnyhoppor is at 6, 5, 4 health. But suddenly, he's behind a Mirror Image. He's crowd roasting everything you play. He's blizzarding everything you play. Some Fury Protector gets drawn, exactly. So some burst from hand to back all this up from Zoo is really what I've been looking to when I've been playing the deck.
Okay, so if the trades happen and then the Scorch comes down, I believe Bunnyhoppor is 100% safe. I don't think there's anything that can kill him from this point.
Okay.
I was just, in terms of how he makes the turn, right? Whether he goes for a safer turn with Mirror Images, say, for example, versus this turn, because it does leave the 3-1 up and his opponent's on, and he's on 10 health. It's a little bit scary because he's then on 7 automatically. Those juggles definitely weren't bad either.
Well, he just fired 5 knives with a 3-1 in play, so you're automatically right.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Has the mirror image behind that as well.
Is this going to be the sickest hold? Like you said, the deck's capable of it. That's the best thing. And with no Soulfires and no Leroy, if BloodTrail plays Archvillain Reform, then suddenly Bunnyhoppor is playing a mirror match, I'll say, in terms of value-based minions, except his deck is built for it, and BloodTrail's is very random.
Now, Raven, is it too easy? Is the fruit hanging too low right now? Imagine if it was a Soulfire.
Okay. That's a very straightforward thing to imagine. It would mean BloodTrail would win.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
I'm sure that's not how court goes.
That's
so you can't be like,
how court
imagine
goes.
this is evidence.
Yeah.
And you're like, guilty? But now, suddenly, okay, Nosdormu, big drop. Imagine if BloodTrail has a giant as every card in the deck, right? An 8-mana giant. Even
that's not what random legendaries are. Not even
No,
close.
this is my point.
Okay.
And that's good.
Okay.
Right? He still gets beat by Bunnyhoppor's deck.
Sure.
Is my point.
Okay.
Which means I don't know what he realistically has to draw to get there. Quickly, think of all the legendaries if there's any that deal 4. Geddon would be sick.
Geddon would be really strong. He's just choosing to roll the dice with his Dr. Morrigan here.
Wait, what's the wording on Janelai?
Oh, no, it works for Warlock, if that's what you're asking. It absolutely works for Warlock.
If it happened.
Yeah.
Janelai into Ragnaros into deal 8 to the face with all those minions on the board. Now, that would be a good way to kick off the World Champs.
But back in the real world, this is a real tough decision for Bunnyhoppor, because right now, he can go face, he can set up lethal, this 5/5 is neutralized by the 2 taunts that he has in play, but it's super scary just to leave a 5/5 up. But if he chooses to trade into it, well, I mean, what if it's a Tyrion that then comes out, right? And then you have to trade through a Tyrion, your opponent has a 5 attack weapon anyway. So I actually like this Blizzard decision a lot.
Yeah.
Because now he is setting up that lethal for himself. BloodTrail needs to draw something that kills Bunnyhoppor or is massively defensive. I think that was an Undertaker. That is an Undertaker. Life tap finds 8 mana.
Oh.
I don't want to rub salt in the wound, but play some Soulfires in your deck. Come on.
There we go. Bunnyhoppor takes the victory, and that's potentially 2 game wins off the back of Reform being in the hand.
Yeah.
And I hate it when you may be right sometimes, Sol, but it happens now and again, and sometimes I have to admit it. But congratulations there to Bunnyhoppor. He takes the first win on the big stage, and I mean a literally huge stage. That's the biggest Hearthstone board I have ever seen.
It's incredible, this stage, just by the way.
I want to go and play on it.
Just stay on that shot forever. Don't worry about us. We're irrelevant. Go back to the stage. But yeah, I do want to go back to that point as well of like when we started talking about potentially which of the 2 matchups that were remaining, the Control Warrior and the Zoo, were actually better or worse for Bunnyhoppor's mage deck because it's so absurdly anti-aggro. It's kind of fighting against the philosophy of the deck. The deck in itself is so anti-control that he's kind of just packed 20 anti-aggro cards in there and just said, hey, the core of, some Giants, some Astromancers and Conjurers Calling is going to get the job done against Control anyway, but it kind of didn't against the Control Warrior, and it was the anti-aggro cards that have put him now in that prime position that you see, which is sitting pretty in winners, waiting for the winner of Jing and Xiao Ti in the All-China Showdown coming up later.
Yeah, and just in case you're not super familiar, it does not mean that BloodTrail is out. You can see him there in the elimination side of the bracket. So he does have a chance. If he beats the loser of Jing versus Xiao Ti, then he does move on and stay alive. But for now, Bunnyhoppor is in an absolutely fantastic position. I think if you ask any player their goals coming into this tournament, yes, they want to be crowned the world champion, of course. But goal number 1, get out of groups. That's what they prepped for. That's what they built the lineup to do. Get out of groups. The rest will happen if it does, but you can't get to the end without having a strong start. And Bunnyhoppor doing very, very well so far.
Yep. One thing that I am definitely going to be keeping an eye on going forward as we get into the following series is firstly how Rogue starts doing when we start to see it in matchups where we're going to see Warriors getting banned instead, but also the Hunter decks, because there are a lot of them, and it did feel like the Hunter decks had to scramble in that series to find the wins that they did pick up.
Yeah, and that's it for match number 1. Bunnyhoppor taking the win over BloodTrail. So don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to be right back with match number 2 coming up. Group A.